When it comes to purchasing, all is not as it seems. We often consider the visible costs while neglecting the expenses below the surface. The cost iceberg best illustrates this principle. The tip of the iceberg represents the purchase price, what everyone can see. So it's easy to imagine why many decisions are solely based on this number. But what about the costs that don't reflect on the initial invoice? How can these hidden expenses impact your bottom line? In this video, we uncover the most common hidden purchasing costs and show you just how misleading the sticker price can be. We'll look at shipment, installation, training, labor costs, maintenance, replacement, disposal costs, and receiving and stocking orders. Let's get cracking. When you buy a physical product, shipping costs are unavoidable. Sometimes the delivery is included in the product price, but not always. It could also be that the initial invoice did not mention shipping costs at all. For these reasons, it's vital to get crystal clear on the shipping terms before you pay anything. The buyer and seller need to agree on who is responsible for what so that there are no surprises. While you're at it, make sure you're also on the same page regarding insurance, freight, and customs costs. The last thing you want is to receive an order only to be served with an additional invoice. Buying new office equipment or software is far more fun than restocking stationery supply, but it comes at a cost. Things like 3D printers and CRM solutions require installation, which someone has to pay for. While the price and even the shipment costs might be included in the initial quote, installation costs are often left out. This can come as a nasty surprise to finance managers. That's why communication with vendors and potential vendors is so crucial. Before you give the okay on a purchase, the total price must be made explicit. Should the installation be built separately, it's worth considering the complexity of the job. Could you delegate the task to someone in-house, or does it require a high level of technical expertise? Whether you manage the installation yourself, hire a third party, or use the vendor's technician, get certainty on these questions before buying. This brings us to the next point. What about training? If you've bought a fancy piece of technology that required 3 aerospace engineers to install, chances are someone will need training to operate it. But it's easy to forget about training during the early stages of the purchase. You're so busy justifying the price to the CEO that you forget about everything that needs to happen after the item is unboxed. When negotiating with your vendor, ask who's responsible for training and whether ongoing training is needed. Get specific about the number of training sessions too. Should the training be part of the deal, make sure that it's stipulated in the contract. If the training is up to you, calculate the cost of hiring someone and factor in the time your team will spend away from their daily work. Here's a quick tip. Before purchasing new software, consider the ease of use just as much as the price. A complicated solution will take longer to learn, might be poorly adopted, and can lead to costly mistakes. Next, you want to think about how the item will impact your operation and labor costs. Does it require more labor, or will it ramp up the cost of operation? Will it introduce additional steps in your production process that could cause delays or necessitate overtime work? When seen from this perspective, the product price becomes less relevant. There is no use buying a cheap product or solution if it requires significantly more labor or interferes with your daily operations. Maintenance is another aspect that's easy to forget when you're weighing up the pros and cons of a purchase. Not only should you consider who will fix the broken equipment or glitchy software, you also need to think about the cost of the new parts, the labor, and the unplanned downtime. How much money do you risk losing if this machine or program stopped working? For high-ticket items, it's a good idea to have a service agreement in place. If you've got a software maintenance agreement, the vendor is legally bound to provide technical support and to keep your software updated. You should also inquire about preventative maintenance programs. These can increase the lifespan of your equipment and reduce the likelihood of breakdowns. Ask your vendor how often they do maintenance checkups, how quickly are common problems fixed, and whether the parts and labor are included in the program. Wondering how committed the vendor is to their service agreements? Read some reviews. These will tell you what you need to expect from a maintenance point of view. When it comes to equipment, find out about the availability and cost of new parts. The purchase might not be worth the loss of waiting times. Sometimes, no amount of maintenance can save your asset, and you have no choice but to buy a new one. The replacement cost is the total amount it will cost to replace an asset of the same value. But the thing is, many companies don't generate enough revenue to cover asset replacements. That's why you've got to plan ahead for these costs so that they don't catch you off guard. But it's not just about getting a replacement. You've got to think about the cost of disposing of the asset. Disposal costs represent the future liability of getting rid of an item. These costs include the losses and gains associated with selling, recycling, or hauling the item away. The last hidden cost is related to receiving and stocking orders. When you've purchased a physical product, you'll need to pay either your staff or the delivery driver to unload the goods. Someone also needs to check that the shipment matches the initial order. They need to ensure that everything is in line with the purchase order. From there, invoices and purchase orders need to be reviewed to ensure consistency. This process can be a big nightmare if a supplier is disorganized. Be sure to review supplier performance regularly to keep these check times to a minimum. So, the next time you need to make a purchase, take a careful look beneath the surface. Don't be fooled by the sticker price. You want to ensure that you keep shipment, installation, training, labor, maintenance, replacement, disposal, and receiving and stocking orders costs in mind. In the next video, we talk about saving throughout the purchasing process. I bet you'll see a different side to requisitions and purchase approvals. Catch you there.